Sometimes you watch a round on the PGA Tour and you can just feel that something isn't sitting right with the players. Not because the golf course is tough. We all love tough golf. That's what championship golf is supposed to be. But every once in a while, the conversation shifts from "this course is hard" to "is this actually fair?" And right now, that exact debate is suddenly back in the middle of the PGA Tour world again. What's crazy is, this isn't even a new argument. Fans who follow the tour closely have heard whispers about this place before. Players have talked about it behind microphones, some have hinted at frustration, and a few have even looked completely stunned walking off the course. But this week, after just the first round, something happened that might reopen one of the most controversial course debates we've seen on tour in years. And when a moment like this happens, especially at one of the most iconic stops on the schedule, you know the entire golf world starts paying attention. So before we break this whole situation down, quick favor from one PGA Tour fan to another. If you enjoy following the tour, the drama around these tournaments, the players, the rankings, everything that makes this sport great, go ahead and drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. This channel is brand new. We're trying to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and the goal here is simple. Just real conversations about the PGA Tour from people who actually watch it every week. Now let's talk about what just happened, because this situation might turn into a much bigger story than anyone expected. The player at the center of this conversation is Rory McIlroy, and the tournament, of course, is the Arnold Palmer Invitational at Bay Hill Club and Lodge. And if you follow the PGA Tour closely, you probably already know something important about this event. This is one of the premier stops on the PGA Tour calendar. It's played at the home course of Arnold Palmer. It has huge prestige, a strong field every year, and it sits perfectly on the schedule right before the Players' Championship, which is basically the biggest non-major event in professional golf. So normally, this week is all about excitement. Big names, major-level preparation, and fans getting a preview of who might be peaking heading into the Players. But after round one of the 2026 edition, the story suddenly shifted, because Rory McIlroy stepped in front of the media, and he did not hold back. He basically said that Bay Hill has been set up excessively difficult again. And if you're a longtime PGA Tour fan, that word again is very important, because this exact debate exploded back in 2022. That year, McIlroy actually started the tournament incredible. He led after the opening round and looked completely in control of the golf course. But then, the week slowly unraveled. Over the final 3 rounds, he posted 72, 76, and 76. And after the tournament, he gave one of the most memorable quotes we've heard from him about a course setup. He said he felt shell-shocked. And then he added something that really caught people's attention. He said on the weekend it felt like crazy golf, and that players were not being rewarded for good shots. Now that's a very important distinction. He wasn't saying the course punished bad shots. Every pro expects that. That's championship golf. His argument was that even quality shots weren't getting rewarded, and that's where frustration started to build. And it wasn't just Rory. Veteran players like Adam Scott and Tyrrell Hatton also voiced frustrations about the setup that week. So, fast forward 4 years, and now here we are in 2026. And after just the first round, Rory McIlroy is once again questioning what's happening at Bay Hill. According to what he told reporters, the rough this week is higher and thicker than normal, which means even a slight miss off the fairway suddenly turns into a huge problem. Controlling the golf ball from that rough becomes incredibly difficult, even for the best players in the world. But that wasn't his only issue. He also pointed out that the greens are extremely dry, to the point where they are playing firmer than expected. And when greens get that dry and firm, you start seeing balls bounce through putting surfaces. Shots that look perfect suddenly release too much, and players start feeling like they can't fully control outcomes. That's when frustration creeps in. Sources at his media session even described visible frustration from McIlroy while discussing the setup. And here's where things really got interesting. Rory didn't just criticize the course conditions. He actually hinted that if the tournament continues moving in this direction, he might reconsider playing the Arnold Palmer Invitational in the future. Now, to be clear, he didn't officially say he's skipping it. But the message was pretty obvious. It sounded like a warning directed toward tournament officials. And to understand why this conversation keeps resurfacing, you have to look at what's happened to the golf course itself over the last few years. Bay Hill has actually undergone several changes designed to bring the layout closer to Arnold Palmer's original competitive vision. The most noticeable change happened ahead of the 2025 tournament, and it involved one of the most famous holes on the course, the par 3 17th. The longtime greenside bunker that used to sit between the putting surface and the lake was removed. In its place, the course added a steep bank covered with thick rough, and the water hazard was expanded. At first, some people thought this might actually make the hole a little more forgiving. The idea was that instead of hitting a bunker, the ball might stop in the rough. But according to many tour pros, the opposite happened. Before the change, a slightly misjudged shot might land in the sand and still give you a chance to get up and down. Now, if the ball lands just slightly wrong on that bank, it can roll straight into the water. Without that bunker acting as a buffer, the margin for error became much smaller. And that's why the conversation around Bay Hill keeps coming back to the same question. Tournament officials continue to say the course is supposed to be a true championship test, and honestly, that philosophy fits perfectly with the legacy of Arnold Palmer. But a growing number of players believe the balance between punishment and reward might be shifting too far. And with Rory McIlroy reigniting this debate again in 2026, Bay Hill is once again right in the center of one of the biggest philosophical questions in modern golf. How difficult is too difficult? And the timing of this conversation makes it even more interesting. Because next week, the entire PGA Tour heads to the Players' Championship, which means the tension, the frustration, and the discussion around this week's setup could easily carry straight into one of the biggest tournaments of the season. And honestly, as a PGA Tour fan, this is one of those debates that's always fascinating to watch unfold. Nobody wants easy golf at this level. The best players in the world should be tested. But at the same time, the magic of championship golf comes from that balance. When great shots get rewarded, and players feel like they can attack a course with confidence. Right now, Rory McIlroy clearly feels that balance might be drifting in the wrong direction at Bay Hill. Whether tournament officials respond, whether the setup changes in future years, or whether this just becomes another chapter in the long history of brutal Bay Hill conditions, that's something we're all going to be watching very closely. Especially with the biggest names in the world all preparing for the Players' Championship next week. But now, I really want to hear what you think. Do you like seeing courses on the PGA Tour pushed to the absolute limit? Or do you agree with Rory that sometimes the setup crosses the line? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I always love hearing what other PGA Tour fans think about these situations. And if you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. The PGA Tour Today channel is still brand new. We're trying to reach our first 1,000 subscribers, and if you're someone who loves real discussions about the PGA Tour, the players, the tournaments, and everything happening behind the scenes, you're definitely in the right place. Thanks for watching, and let's see how the rest of this week at Bay Hill unfolds.